Kia ora. It's the first time for Rangitane to be sitting in the seat. I'm so glad we're starting just a minute past, but Mr Mayor will extend grace. I would like to ask my whanaunga Peter Tarangi to get up and do the opening karakia. Thank you very much. Do we have any apologies?
From Palmerston City, Mr Chair, Councillor Harpiter. And Councillor Petrinas. And Councillor Finlay.
Thank you. I move that they be accepted.
I'm quite happy to second that, Mr Chair.
Thank you. Just remind you, I've been told that we ought to vote with that thing in my hand. Billy Meehan hasn't won. Do you still have one, Mr Mayor? You don't have one? Okay. All right. It's passed with 6 votes, so it's unanimously agreed. Do we have any notification of items? Do we have any items? Late items? None? Just a quick explanation. I believe we've been... the council is on the website. The meeting is also being live streamed on the City Council's YouTube, and I'm sure it'll be packed, everyone gluing to it. Health and safety requirements. If anyone's...
Excuse me, could the Administrator, could we get that up on screen, please?
There you are. On hearing an alarm, go as fast as you can to the exit. Okay. The assembly point is by the clock tower, to Marae. Health and safety, smoking, no one allowed to smoke in here. There's a public entrance out the front and way down the road if you wish to have a smoke. A defibrillator for those who have got bad tickers is out there. And please report any incidents to the committee administrator. Thank you. Okay. Any declarations of interest?
Just through the chair, obviously a descendant of Rangitane, and we're talking about Te Mautoa Poutoa today. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Myself included.
Thank you so much. What have we got here? Any public comments? There's none. Great. Have a confirmation of our minutes. Okay. moved, seconded. The committee resolves that the minutes of the Rangitane o Manawatu committee meeting on the 29th, 2020, Part 1, public, be confirmed as true and correct record. Do we need, I think we will have a seconder. Daniel and Chris. Could you vote on that, please? Thank you.
Sorry, mine's flashing blue.
I think we should go back to show of hands. Technology is obviously playing up with the rough weather. It's past 6, so thank you for that. We'd like to get Hannah to speak on the appointment of the Chair and Deputy Chair for the Rangitane o Manawatu Committee for 2021 and 2022. Thank you, Hannah.
Kia ora tātou. It's great to have this committee in the chamber. Our first meeting was over in the function centre. I'm happy to take this report as read. I think it is self-explanatory, but more than happy to answer questions if there are any.
Any questions? No? All right. I'm just going to change the order a little bit, and I'm going to ask my whanaunga, Peter Tarangi, Chair of the Rangitane Working Group, to do his presentation before the development process. We better vote on this first. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, happy to second.
Thank you. Council appoint Grant Smith, the Mayor, to be Chairperson and Wiremu Te Aweawe to be Deputy Chairperson for the Rangitane o Manawatu Committee for 2021. The Council appoint Wiremu Te Aweawe to be Chairperson and Grant Smith, the Mayor, to be his Deputy. I like that. Chairman for the Rangitane o Manawatu for 2022. Can we vote on it, please? Thank you. Great. I'd like to ask my whanaunga Peter Tarangi to come and do his presentation now. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and your Deputy Chair as well. Thank you for your introduction, and I'd also like to extend my congratulations to Alicia Rutherford on her being honoured in the way that she has recently been. So, just by way of introduction, we had a meeting at Tāne Nui a Rangi down Maxwell's Line in relation to some of the interests regarding Te Motu o Poutoa, its restoration and development framework, and from that comes this presentation. So a little bit of background. I'll read a bit of this and flesh it out as we go. So when Whātonga, the captain of the Kurahopo Wakawu, the Rangitane people claim descent from, came into the Tāmaki Nui Arua region. So there's a long story that goes before that, but he eventually made his way down from Heretaunga into the Tāmaki Nui Arua region, which is around Dannevirke, and he met a man by the name of Tamakuku. Now, Tamakuku was descended from one of the younger siblings of Kupe. Kupe, as you'll all know, from your days in primary school, was the one that chased the wheke or Muturangi, the octopus of Muturangi, across the Pacific to Castle Point and then down into the top of the South Island. Well, he left one of his younger siblings behind, more than one I understand, and he returned back to the Pacific Islands again. And when Whātonga met Tamakuku over in the Dannevirke region, Tamakuku at that stage claimed the mana, or the authority over the whole region, the jurisdiction on both sides of the river, from its inception to where it enters into the Tasman. So they developed a good relationship, Whātonga and this man, Tamakuku, to the extent where Whātonga's second wife was the granddaughter of Tamakuku. Her name was Reretua, and she, from Reretua and Whātonga, comes the grandson, Rangitane. So further links with Tamakuku were established when Rangitane's daughter, Hene Takutai, married Rākeheua, who was another descendant of Tamakuku. So we in Rangitane and in the associated tribes share this descent from these great ancestors. So we're coming down the genealogical lines, the descendants of Tamakuku intermarried with those of Whātonga. I've talked to some of that already. And also some of the ancient people who were also residing in the area, the Ruatāmori people, the Ngāti Māmoe people who inhabited this region. They eventually made their way down through the Horowhenua region to Kapiti, and many of them moved down into the South Island as a result of warfare. Among them was Pautoa, who was the son of Ruatāmori. Now, he was of mixed descent from these ancient people, and his wife, Marae, I know her as Marae. Some genealogical tables quote her as being a woman by the name of Uaroi. However, we know that they were husband and wife, and from that comes the descendants of Rangitane, the Ngāti Tū Mokai people, who occupied the upper reaches of the Pohangana Valley, and so according to the writings of the old people, the Ngāti Pautoa people maintained their own hapu identity up until reasonably recent times. Most of Rangitane claim their descent from Pautoa and Marae in this location, and it marks one of the very significant sites that we're talking about today, Te Motu or Pautoa. So, and at the time of the European settlement in this area, it was largely occupied by Te Hirawanui Kaimokapuna, and we have one of his descendants sitting up here. Right here beside us. In Ruma Karaitiana, and his family, his extended family. So we would like to acknowledge him as well, and his hapu and the extended iwi. So as part of the discussion that we held at Te Hotu Manawa, we covered these following aspects. Cultural narratives, acknowledging the past, and we've touched on that. Mahi toi. So this was as a result of the possibility of establishing a marae there. So this would be a marae not only for Rangitane, but I see it as a civic marae. So that would cover cultural narratives. These are the things that we were hoping. Bear in mind, this is a wish list, okay? So that it would be an exemplar of the arts and crafts relating to Rangitane, that it would connect with both traditional and contemporary aspects of Māori culture, that there would be interactive activities available in that setting. We would also be able to grasp some of the future technology of using solar power for this structure, good stormwater storage, and the possibility of using wind power, that there would be facilities for the public such as baby changing and the likes. Maybe a fortified power concept as well, acknowledging all the whakapapa connections that Rangitane have with the local iwi in the surrounding area. As we know, that there's many of the families that were here when Europeans first arrived, many have drifted to other areas. So some have gone to the Dannevirke region, some have remained here, some have gone down to the Wairarapa and over to Whanganui. So, and we maintain these whakapapa links when we meet with each other. So it's just a way of acknowledging our links to these other iwi. We hope that it would acknowledge wāhi tapu, and one of the suggestions was that maybe we could even have a cantilevered stage for performances that could be done lower down on the bank of the river, and that this could serve as a cultural or as a visitor centre. The values that we wanted to promote that came out of our discussion were kotahitanga, so we're looking at unity between people and that whānau cohesion, hauoratanga, that's health and well-being of people, rangatiratanga, whānau self-management, so and yeah, I guess self-determination there to a degree, pāporetanga, participation in society across all levels, and you can see some classic examples of that happening today. Tuakiritanga, confident participation in te ao Māori, and tiaki taiao, which is having a responsibility towards our natural environment. So you can see that that's embodied in those ones down the left-hand side. So, wairuatanga, okay, thank you. No, all good, thank you, Hannah. Okay, environmental protection and sustainability. This was a feature that came out of the discussions that we had at Tāne Nui a Rangi, and so important to connect with the river. The river in Palmerston North is, like Whanganui, one of the main features of this area. If you think about the catchment area that the Manawatū embraces, so from Mount Pukaha, Mount Bruce, we see the flow of the Mākakahi River, the Mangatainoka River, the Tidomea River and the Mangahao River. They all flow into the Manawatu River at the gorge. So that's a huge catchment area from the Ruahine and from the Tararua Ranges on the eastern side through the gorge and then draining from those same maunga, Ruahine, Tararua, and also from the upper reaches of around the northern reaches of the Orawa River and up into the northern reaches for the Pahangana River as well. So then we've got further on down where it meets the Orawa River and the Tangi Moana River. So the Manawatu embraces a huge catchment area. So it's really important that it takes a feature, as we feel as a people. These were our roadways in days gone by. in the heavily forested areas and how we visited one another. It's important that we preserve these connections, and these connections also link us to people that lived in these other areas. So having that connect with the Manawatu River is very important for us. That came out in the discussion. The possibility of enhancing that by having a waka ramp at the site, a tuna platform for harvesting, for hui, how we can incorporate maintain and incorporate the existing observatory, in terms of Te Ao Māori. If you consider how our ancestors came across from Tawhiti Nui across to Aotearoa, a lot of that was done through star navigation, and it might be a way of linking us to our Pacific Island relatives as well, and having a relevance for them. Marae, that's like traditional food gardens, forest foods, rongoa, those are like the medicines that we as Rangitane use or are familiar to many Māori. Perhaps a pedestrian bridge across the river, native planting and waka ama competitions. So once again, this was a wish list that came out of our discussions. There are some here who are at that, who might want to add something to that. Do you want to add anything, Ruma? Okay. So we looked also at the possibility of tourism opportunities that may exist. One was exciting. One was having a gondola, which would cross from, I guess, where the Teachers' College exists at the moment, and extend up to where the existing Te Motu o Poutoa site is, which would be quite a tourist attraction. Maybe having a zip line, a luge. Once again, it's a wish list, but they still bring exciting things to your imagination. Social enterprise opportunities for whānau. So this would give extended family from Rangitane and others employment opportunities. We even put, one of the suggestions was having a 5-star restaurant there with a focus on uniquely Māori foods, education opportunities there for visitors to come and look at what's important for us locally and regionally as well as nationally. There was one suggestion to have a mini sky tower, tourism guides. There was a suggestion that maybe there's, like in Wellington, has the Wellington sign over by the airport, that maybe we could have a similar sort of Hollywood sign that says Rangitane. There could be weavers and carvers workshops on site, kapa haka performances in the evenings or in the afternoons for visitors to our city, canoe moorings, strategic walkways, and a playground. So those were other things that were discussed. Once again, we looked at how that linked with our cultural values, which impact, what we see this as not only what's good for Māori, is good for everybody, embracing a wide reach for all the community, and not just for the Māori community. This was another, you would have seen in the previous slide, a 5-star hotel. Someone suggested a Michelin star restaurant to showcase everything of Rangitane. And once again, linking that to the values, and then on to taking the car park down to the bottom of the hill as opposed to having it at the top, and limiting vehicle access to the top, possibly for those who are disabled. So that was what came out of our discussions. I want to pay tribute to Jason Pilkington, who was a tremendous support to us on the day and guided our discussions and deliberations. And so thank you, Jason, for that. And we had some other notable speakers who came to us on that day as well. So thank you. That's our presentation.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Peter, thank you. Kia ora. Thanks for your presentation. It's fascinating, all this te ao Māori world and everything that you want to achieve. And look, I think some of this stuff is fantastic. Just on the limiting vehicle access, how would you get people up there? Because it is quite a climb. Has there been any thought to that, or are you just sort of in a strategic sense thinking it's not a place for cars, essentially it's a place for people? But how would you get people up there? Well,
I guess this was some of the reasoning behind having the gondola, I guess. I see that having a car park up there, one of the ideas that was floated, having a car park up there takes up an awful lot of space. And if you're going to promote this as a feature for the city, then you're going to need to use all that space for the sorts of things that we've, put out there on the wish list. So,
Would you shuttle people?
You'd have to.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Can I have someone move that accept the report?
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move it.
Is there any comments before voting? Like, would you like to ask how we're going to get up there on gondolas and things like that? I've never met such a quiet lot of councillors in all my life. No questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment if I could. Just acknowledge the report writers and those that have fed into the report. Te Maitua Pūtau, and thank you for the whakapapa, the history there. It's really aspirational, and I think I look back to Rotorua or Queenstown, and some may have laughed at them when they said, we're going to do a gondola, but they've done it. So I suppose the challenge to us is, are we going to do something aspirational? And look, that may take time, and this report starts that journey of having some aspirations, and then what does that look like into a proper feasibility and business case, and then the associated funding that goes with it. So I think it's a very good start, and doing it together. As you said, Peter, I think your aspirations are our aspirations as well. So thank you for that, and I thoroughly endorse it.
Kia ora.
I'd just like to give a quotation I always give. Kua kaupapio te araha mō koutou e whakaoti. And when I look at you guys sitting here and what you brought forward, that's a vision for our people. They're walking together. So with tauiwi. So that's a big ups to you. It's good to see you and Ruma there. Daniel, would you like any comment at all? Or Chris?
Kia ora. I'd just really like to endorse Mayor Grant Smith's that this is very aspirational. It's the beginning of what we know will be a very long process, but I think it's an exciting opportunity for the city, and we very much want to work down this pathway in true treaty partnership and be inclusive of our city. So I think some of the things in the next paper will help support this pathway forward. So we look forward to a very, hopefully, a positive pathway. Kia ora.
Okay, thank you for that. Then I call for a vote. We accept. Yes, it's passed, 100%. Thank you. I'd now like to call of Kathy Diva Todd, the Manager of the Parks and Reserve, to come in Motua Potoa Development Plan process. This will be very interesting.
And with your agreement, Chair, if I could ask Jason Pilkington to join me at the table, please.
I couldn't think of a better person. I didn't recognise him in that tie, though.
I know he's looking a bit flash today, isn't he?
Yes, yes, very good. Brushes up quite nicely.
So will the development at Te Motua Potoa be aspirational or will it be inspirational? We don't know, and the report in front of you is really about the process, and I think Danielle put it really well when we sort of said this is the beginning of a pathway, and really the process outlined in this report is how we go down that pathway. And the way we go down that pathway is not just the members of the committee around here, but it's with our community. And this is really together how we can bring these ideas and engage with the community. You can't go out to the community and say, we've got Te Motua Potoa, what do you want to do with it? You need some aspiration, you need some inspiration to be able to go and say, these are the things that we are thinking that align with our values. What do you think about those? And almost kick them around a bit until you get to a cohesive plan that the community collectively together want to go forward with. So this report just gives you more detail on the process that you approved at the last committee meeting and outlines where we look that we will go to from here. And Jason and I are here to take any questions you may have on the report. May I just make one other comment, and that is that if you close the car park, you can actually get to the site from the end of Valcluse Heights. It's a relatively level walking track from that end, so there are two ends into this significant site with that residential development.
If I had a choice, I think I'll take the gondola. All right. Yes.
Kia ora. Just in regards to the observation referred to for observatory, sorry, is what I'm looking at. What's the status of that facility? Who owns it, and is there a lease in place, or just can you understand who owns it and what the relationship is?
Yes, it's owned by the Astrological Society on land that is leased from the council. It is a pretty old and historical lease, and I'm not sure, Jason, if you know when it's due for renewal.
No, I don't.
We're entering into kind of stakeholder engagement on this at present, so we'll be talking to the Astrological Society pretty soon.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, thank you. Just wanted to ask, thinking about the consultation process, it seems like this is the first or most strongly that we've gone out in a bicultural sort of context, and sort of how that will manifest itself in terms of communications and engagement with the community.
I think that, like Kathy said before, we're not going out and asking people, what do you want, with a blank slate. So we're going out with Rangitane's aspirations and saying, as you know, for most people in Palmerston North, this is an iconic kind of area where many of them have grown up and spent time. So I guess that's kind of the first phase of how we're trying to figure this out as a bicultural type of thing. So we have that aspect of legislation that we have to engage with our community on the one hand, but on the other hand, we have a very clear historical partnership with Rangitane, and they're very clear on what they think the site should, you know, be embodied. And so we have to kind of balance those two things out, and I think that we've done a pretty good job in terms of the process. We'll sit down with comms and do a comms plan on this over the coming months, ready to go for next year.
I think one of the significant changes for this consultation is, rather than council going out and consulting with the community and saying that we have consulted with iwi, we are going out together. That is a significant difference. Whilst under the legislation of the Reserves Act, there are some statements we will need to make as the administering body and the way in which we give public notification. The key difference here is it's not council going out to consultation, it is a partnership going out for consultation.
Thank you. If I can just follow up briefly, I suppose some of what was on my mind was around the communication side of things, and I know a lot of times busy people will sort of glance at something, and if it looks like it is of greater interest to Marae, they may say, well, that's something to do with Marae, it's nothing to do with me. And likewise, if it looks like it's maybe pitched to Pakeha, they might go, hey, it looks, you know, and sort of how we're going to get the comms sort of structured in a way that everyone that picks it up goes, hey, this is about something I need to engage with, whether they're Marae, Pakeha, or part of another cultural tradition.
So the key to that is the stakeholder and engagement plan. First of all, identifying those stakeholders, what their relative interests might be in this, whether they're a partner or may have an interest, for example, as a neighbouring resident. What is the appropriate communication channels, at what points in the process we need to engage with stakeholders in an informing way, in which way as a communicating or decision-making way. And so the first part of this and the next stage of the process is to develop that plan and agree what is appropriate for the stakeholder and the type of messages and the things that we are communicating.
And I think also a key focus on the site rather than on the organisations that are going out consulting. I think the site's really well known, and I think that if we engage, you know, well on the site, we'll get a lot of interest.
Daniel.
Just through the chair, I just make an analogy to the nature calls. We've kind of gone out with that in terms of our treaty partnership together. So I think there's a template there developing. Of course, this will be quite different, but I think we've started that process already when we go out and engage with the public on significant issues. So I'd just like to add that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You took the words right out of my mouth. It's called treaty partnership. Kia ora. Can I, oh, sorry, I don't have mine. Yes, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The budgets for this, not the, have we got consultation budgets all set up for this, or do we need to put something in for the 10-year plan? Just so that we don't get any barriers. I'm not worried about the budgets, but just so that we don't have barriers when we start going out with this.
So we have made provision over a number of years for development and planning at the site, and they have been successfully carried forward. We have funding available at the moment for development planning. The intention is that when we get to a point where we've got a development plan, and then the next stage, and you'll notice it's in the report, is to put together what that might look like in terms of funding and responsibilities, and that will probably need to come back to an annual plan, because it'll probably be between an LTP and an annual plan provision.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Leila. Can we move in accepting the report? Chris?
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to second it.
Is there any comments before voting? And I call for the vote. Six votes yes, great. The work schedule for Rangitane or Manawatu committee, I think it's on page 23 on your.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm quite happy to move that schedule. Obviously, we'll have a progress report come back to this committee and into the first quarter next year, progress report, so I'm quite happy to move it.
Second it, Daniel. Yeah, Daniel seconded it. Can you vote, please? may I say, before I ask my whananga to get up and close, I'm very encouraged. And when I sit in a place like this, I think of the ones that have gone before us. Te whaladere's grandfather, my uncle, Daniel's mum, and to get to this position, they did a lot of hard work and made it so easy for us to flow through. So I think it's a wonderful thing for Rangitane, or Manawatu. Ruma and I have been in it for years, and to see these things happen, and also with Todd had to walk the gentle road between all of us. But it's good, positive stuff, and I'm 100% for it. I could be biased too. Could I ask you, Peter, to close with a karakia, please? Thank you very much, and on behalf of Rangitane Committee, have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Kia ora.